Hey guys, how's it going? It's Schmeat back here with another video because we got to talk about PJ Washington. There's been a lot of talk around PJ Washington, a lot of disrespect, and we're going to be talking about all of it and what I think PJ Washington is going to do in the future, and how he's just really got this a whole lot of potential that nobody really talks about and nobody really acknowledges. So if you like this content, subscribe, like, all that jazz. And let's get right into it. So the reasoning for this video is pretty simple. There's been some unnecessary slander around PJ Washington. Obviously, there's slander around Russell Westbrook. That's pretty much blown up over NBA Twitter about empty stats. But there's also been some posts about PJ Washington, especially after, I believe it was the Suns game, where he posted up a insane 0 points in 44 minutes. It's not told that like he did have an impactful game. And it wasn't just scoring. And we're going to get into how the NBA media and media in general don't picture players in the same realm as what they actually are. Like, I'm thinking of a player like in Draymond, where a casual NBA fan looks at the stats and looks at the box score, and it doesn't really reflect his impact. And I think that's what PJ Washington is turning into. So you got this controversy about the 0 point. Well, it's not really controversy. It's just slander about the 0 point game. And there's also talk about his personal life. He's dating some Instagram model who's like notorious for certain things. But you got that going for PJ Washington, and like that's really not in his favor. But most of this video is going to be talking about how the media appeal to PJ Washington doesn't really affect who he is as a player, just like Mikal Bridges to a lesser extent, just like Draymond Green, who I already mentioned. Because most of the NBA media pictures him as this nobody on the Hornets. And that's really his perception right now as a second-year player. And most of this is because of the stats he puts up, because his stats, let's be honest, it doesn't blow you away if you're not a die-hard Hornets fan like me, or if you're not really watching the game to a full extent. So like a casual NBA fan, which I do understand, like who doesn't watch every single game, sees the box score, sees the points per game as just basic NBA player numbers. I mean, if I was a casual NBA fan, which for most teams I am because I don't watch every single game, if you just see a 12 points per game and 3 assists showing up every night, which is what he's averaging, you wouldn't think much of it. But I'm gonna try to persuade the casual NBA fan into actually acknowledging PJ Washington's importance to this team and his potential as a whole. So number one, although I don't like talking statistics, you have to look at all of his statistics as a whole, because they do benefit him at the end of the day. Obviously, the 12 points a game and 3 assists aren't like life-changing numbers, but I mean 7 rebounds per game, 1 steal a game, 1 block a game, and 38% from the 3 are pretty good numbers for a power forward. He plays center for us too. But going away from his stats, there's a bigger impact that he plays, especially to our team, and especially in this stage of the NBA, how impactful what he does on the floor is for every NBA, not even just the Hornets, for every NBA team. He's a player that you want out there for you guys. He's a player that is a starting caliber player on a championship level team, and that's not much you can say for the other players on the Hornets. I don't think Devontae Graham is a starting point guard on a championship level team, but other players like Gordon Hayward, who's been in deep playoff runs, and PJ Washington, who has yet to make it to the playoffs, but he is one of those types of players where I do see him on a championship level team starting and contributing on that team, and hopefully that's our team that he does it for. But going back to his impact, when you watch a full game, you pick up on some things that he does on the floor that just wows you at the end of the day, and it makes you realize that although he isn't an insane impact right now, a few years down the line he can be a really special piece for us, and he can be a really special piece for a team we may trade him to, because the Hornets organization is pretty sus when it comes to keeping players and not keeping players, and but that's a video for another day. But one of the things that you do pick up on when you watch a full game, when you watch and sit down and really key in on some things. If you see this defensive potential, the ability to guard multiple positions is really a coveted attribute around the league. I just watched JJ Redick's podcast, which I do say that you guys should turn into because it is a great podcast, and there was some controversy about him leaving New Orleans, but JJ referenced in his podcast how the reason he went to New Orleans was because Jrue Holiday could guard multiple positions, which takes the pressure off of JJ Redick. And that's a really coveted thing around the league is guys who can guard, in Jrue Holiday's case, it's the 1, the 2, and the 3, and sometimes the 4. So for Drew's case, it's a lot of different guards around the league, and for PJ Washington's case, it's a lot of centers around the league, and obviously that he can guard his own positions, the power forward. But it's small forwards who are speedier. He can guard them. It's big centers. He is like 6'9", so he holds his own weight down there. He's like a little PJ Washington when I see him play. But it shows you that potential, and it also shows you the small ball potential, which is another coveted thing around the league. I mean, I have some examples right here. The next with Jeff Green. And the Rockets with PJ Tucker a couple of years ago. Obviously, he's on the Bucks now. But you see these small ball lineups. The Warriors as well with Andre Iguodala. There's these players that can play multiple positions, which puts the team into this really great spot into putting them at the 5, which PJ Washington has been playing because our centers at the end of the day are just fucking awful. It allows us to play him at the 5, and he holds his ground there. Obviously with competition like I'm trying to think who would we play in the playoffs, like Embiid. Obviously we're not playing Jokic in the playoffs, but really good centers. I don't think he can hold his own yet. But the average NBA center, I would trust him with that defensive matchup. And as I said earlier, with this 3-point percentage, he can obviously space the floor, which I mean is really catches your eye when you watch a full game, because I mean, as a Hornets super fan, that's pretty rare to see a front court player space the floor. I mean, Miles to an extent, when he feels like it can hit a few shots, but our centers can't space the floor. So when you see PJ Washington shooting almost 40% from 3, it really stands out. So that's another piece of information I have. But for all these reasons, I expect him to make some all-star games down the line. And his potential, his player build, his attributes that he already has in his second year, although they don't wow you away in the box score, it shows you his potential. And it shows you that he does have, like, I would project that maybe 2 years down the line, he is an all-star. 3 years down the line, he's even more than an all-star. But that's not to say that he doesn't have things to improve on, because an all-star, you're not making an all-star game averaging 12 points and 3 assists and being a 4, like maybe if they were the 1 seed, is a Draymond Green type. Draymond Green wasn't averaging the most insane numbers, but he was still an all-star for like 2 or 3 seasons during the Warriors run. But you're not going to make an all-star game averaging these numbers, being the 4th seed in the East. So he does have to make improvements, obviously, like defending great centers, Anthony Davis, Jokic, Embiid. If he can start handling his own with the best of the best, that'll really show NBA media that he's the real deal. And also his decision-making isn't like the greatest, but that's more of a team thing. Devontae Graham's passing, LaMelo Ball, he was obviously a rookie, so I don't really try to focus in on that, but Miles Bridges, his decision, like our whole team is pretty bad in decision making, so it's not really a knock on PJ Washington personally, but if he wants to reach that next level, he has to make a little bit better, but I do expect him to really do that. And at the start of the season, I really knocked him for not improving in the box score. I expected him to score more like 15 or 17 a game, but I'm fine with him staying at a similar range, because his impact has grown on our team, and it really shows when you watch a full game. But that's going to be it for me, guys. If you like these videos, subscribe, like, all that jazz, and I'll see you guys later.